Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Fred Thornton, and for the next hour or so, I'll be talking to you about the new features in pressSIGN version 9.2. Now, normally, Ian Reed would be doing this, but he's going to be retiring at the end of next month, and he's asked me to do all these sorts of things from now on. So the more I do it, the better I get. The first thing to say about pressSIGN 9.2 is that it is a dot release. It is not chargeable as an upgrade for any user of version 9. So dongle-based users do not have to pay for 9.2 if they're already on version 9. If you're on a previous version, then there would be an upgrade, unless you have a pressSIGN GPM subscription, a current pressSIGN GPM subscription, so within contract. Again, subscription, you would be allowed to use the latest version of the software during your contract. Okay, someone's talking in the background. Andy. Right. So, just a reminder, please mute yourselves when you get your headsets and things working, because we don't want interruptions, because they can be confusing. Right, so I was just saying about the fact it's a dot release, it's a free upgrade for all 9 users, subscription users, and an appropriate upgrade price for users of previous versions. That price hasn't changed. And as it's a dot release, what I've really got to say about the type of new features we've added are that they are mostly the things that we told you that we would add in version 9, just didn't get round to doing them prior to the release of version 9 back in March last year. So this is kind of catch up, if you will. So as you can see on the screen, there's a list of new features which I'll run through quickly, and then we'll dive into a bit more detail about them in a minute. So one of the first kind of most fundamental changes is that we can now add fixed target densities for CMYK inks into press targets. We can teach the IO table how to do an XY scan of patches within the artwork or from strips in different parts of a package, for example. We now support the Color Sentinel CS110 spectrophotometer. The ink key corrections for pro users, or that's the full sheet view or in the summary screen, can now be shown as an absolute density correction rather than a percentage. We've added a channel selector for the Spectra drive to help with Wi-Fi interference. We now support easy control files in auto mode from Heidelberg. We can disable individual colors in individual keys to stop scoring in those areas. You can create custom scoring presets to use again and again and again in a press target. There is a channel selector in the softproof module, which enables you to view a combination or individual the data of the individual channel, the comparison between the target and the measured data, and last but not least, the biggest single thing that's going to make a difference for some people is that we now support Pantone Live. Okay, so that's not necessarily everything, it's just the most noteworthy things. So let's talk a little bit more in depth. So ever since version 1, pressSIGN has always calculated the best target density to use to achieve the lowest delta E, the best color match, purely and simply because we believe that was the best thing to do. Over the years, a number of users have suggested that they don't want to do that. So we've enabled them to ignore the algorithm that's telling them to add more ink and just run to a fixed target density. Now, it's only done for CMYK inks because it's been added as an option in the press target, which only defines the targets for CMYK inks. So spot colors are still done the same way. There's another factor in spot colors, which is that there's no standardized way of calculating the density for a spot color as well. So what one person's density, value for a spot color could be a completely different amount of ink, completely different color to someone else's density for a spot color. So there's technical reasons we haven't done it for spot colors as well. But if you want to ignore the dynamic density adjustment targets calculated by pressSIGN and just run to fixed target densities, you either create a new press target or edit an existing one. Activate the CMYK density box at the bottom left-hand corner, enter your values, enter your choice of filter or leave it automatic, okay, and then save the press target with whatever name you want to use. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, I've put a reminder, which is to say that the reason we've never done this before, the reason I don't recommend doing it particularly, is because using the same fixed target density from job to job does not guarantee that you'll print the same color from job to job. Okay, so we've added it because some people want it. Politely, I'd prefer if no one used it, but that's a personal opinion. So if I just give you some screenshots. The first is of the press target window, and along the bottom you'll see the CMYK density checkbox isn't activated, and then the falling screenshot you just saw there has it activated with some numbers entered and the filter pack set at status T. It's a relatively simple thing to do, but you just have to remember the consequences of doing it. Okay, one of the new features for the I/O table support is the XY scan capability. Now, the I/O table has been supported for a number of years, insofar as that you could measure a single strip or a chart like a Fogra Media Wedge or a P2P51 chart, something that would take time, which is the classic way of using the I/O table. However, in numerous packaging environments where the color bars, there isn't enough room for a long color bar with all the patches that we want, to put them in glue flaps or in places of low importance from an aesthetic perspective. The XY scan capability means that you can teach the I/O table where all the patches are within the artwork, and then on subsequent scans you can simply press one button and the device will go and measure those patches in the sequence that you taught the software, and then give you a full measurement as a result. So it's relatively simple to use. You simply start a job with a color bar of all of the patches that you want to measure. You go to the single patch window and select the color bar tab, just like you would do if you were measuring a short color bar with a handheld device like the Spectra Eye or 530 or Exact without the scan upgrade, etc., etc. But instead of simply just doing the scans, of course, the I/O table, the i1 Pro on the I/O table is actually on the arm. So you move the crosshair of the device to the first patch and click the measure button. And then you move it to the next patch and click the measure button. When you've done that for all of the patches in the strip, you click calculate. Now that does two things. It will calculate the score of that measured strip, and it also saves the XY position and the sequence of those movements for future scans. So the next sheet that you put down, you click the XY scan button and it just goes and does it for you. Okay, so here's a screenshot of the single patch window in the color bar tab with no data. The next is a short video of me measuring a package. It takes a while for the device to come out, but that was because my helper didn't realize I was waiting for him to click the button. And as you can see, the device is moving around the artwork, picking up solid colors from different parts of the sheet. Some of them are in lettering because the area was big enough to get a good measurement. Some of them are from patches put down by the pre-press company. And each time you click the button, it will just do the same set of measurements in the same sequence again and again, hopefully saving a lot of time and effort for the people capturing this kind of data. And what I would say is that you really have to make sure that the sheet is positioned in exactly the same place on the electrostatic mat before starting the scan on subsequent sheets. Otherwise, if you're a few mil out either side and your measurement area is only a very small area, you could end up getting erroneous measurements. So after the scan is complete, you can see that the patches have been filled in with data and we have an overall score. If there were tints and greys and overprints, etc., we would have all that data as well. And that's how easy the XY scan function is. Okay, so I've got to say I don't know a lot about the Color Sentinel CS110, other than the fact that it's a low-cost scanning spectrophotometer in a similar kind of bracket as the i1 Pro. It comes with a Windows driver only, and we only support it for USB, although I believe there is a Bluetooth module. I don't think we got a consistent connection with the Bluetooth, which is why we've only supported USB at the time. It can measure all of the measurement conditions, M0, 1, 2, and 3. Maybe not 3, sorry. It can do single patch mode or short scans using a small track. So as I say, it's kind of like a competitor to the i1 Pro. The only difference really is that the patches have to be quite big. Minimum of 5 mil square for spot measurements, and I haven't been able to get consistent results under 7 mil for scan measurements. Other than that, it's now supported by the software for all of the things that you can do with pressSIGN, and if you're looking to replace an i1 Pro, it might be the budget option. So it's helpful it's there. And that is a picture, I have to say, not of my hand. It's from the manufacturer. It's a picture of the CS110. Okay. Some of the features we've added are purely and simply good ideas by people who have suggested them. They were relatively simple to add, which is why they didn't spend ages in development. So the change, or the ability to change the sense of the ink key corrections from a percentage value to an absolute density value was something along those lines. Someone suggested it would be helpful, and it was relatively simple to do. So from that point of view, it's just a preference. Okay, you go to the File menu, select Preferences, and about halfway down the window, you'll see Density Adjustment, which has a drop-down list. Percentage is ticked by default. That's been the case since version 1, unless you're using print buyer version, which doesn't show you corrections, but standard versions, all non-print buyer versions have shown a percentage for as long as I can remember. Now you have the absolute option. So instead of saying plus 8%, it says plus 0.12. And then the printer can do what he wants to do with that information. You'll also know that the lab density button for whether you want the corrections to point towards the line or point in the direction of travel has been moved into the preference window as well. So the default is density because that's what printers do. They want to move towards the center line. If you change it to lab, it's pointing in the direction that you need to move the keys. Another thing that's just an improvement on an existing feature is adding a Wi-Fi channel selector for the Tecon Spectra drive. I have to say, the Tecon Spectra drive is a very good device, and most of the problems that people have with connectivity is due to the battery not being charged. If it's not plugged in and charging, it will go to sleep after 3 minutes and the device will disconnect from pressSIGN. Nothing we can do about that other than to recommend that people have the power plugged in and make sure that the device is charging all the time. However, these devices are used in a factory environment where there might be lots of competing Wi-Fi signals, and those may be stronger. There may be lots of traffic on the Wi-Fi channel that is selected by the Tecon device service automatically, among other things. So the interference causes a dropout, and up until now, pressSIGN didn't reconnect. So in the background, if there's a WLAN disconnection and reconnection at the Tecon device service, pressSIGN will now automatically reconnect, having seen that message from the Tecon device service. However, you can eliminate those dropouts by using a Wi-Fi channel scanner to check which channels are busy, which aren't, and then by manually selecting the correct or the best Wi-Fi channel for the Spectra drive. So all you do is you open the Tecon configuration window, which is Apple K or Control K on Windows, or going through the Edit Measurement Device Tecon menus. and then just selecting the channel from 2 to 11 that is best for your environment. Or you can leave it on automatic. It's really something that only a few people have a problem with, but again, this does have an effect and makes life a lot easier because the device doesn't keep disappearing all the time. Okay. Any of you familiar with Heidelberg axis control and image control over the years will have been aware that sometimes they change the file format, which we need to respond to by updating our file parser so that pressSIGN can import the data correctly. Well, Easy Control is a low-cost version of Axis Control. It uses the same press console software as Axis Control 2, and it's essentially an Easy Tracks integrated into a press control onto a press control side console. However, the files, and we've only come across this recently, the files included a device name which wasn't recognized by pressSIGN. So that has now been updated, and pressSIGN supports those files in auto mode, and everything's fine. However, because it's based on the same press console software as Axis Control 2, you have the same limitations. So the press console needs to be a certain version, and you only get CMYK data, all of which is explained in the manual. So have a look at that if that's if you've got an Easy Control and you want to get the data, or you have a client who wants to be able to do that. Okay. Again, another improvement to an existing feature is the disabling of ink keys. For a number of years, you've been able to disable an ink key, which includes all of the colors within it. Now, instead of that, you can disable each color individually in different ink zones, or the same ink zone. It's done in the same way. You click the Disable Ink Zones button in the full sheet window. The full sheet window has now been renamed the color bar window to better reflect the diverse number of print processes that don't necessarily measure a full sheet, if you see what I mean. It's the same window. It's the buttons in the same place. It does the same thing. It's just a name change. When you click the Disable Ink Zones window, it changes to be Update. Okay. Before you click it again, you then go and click on the colors in the ink keys that you want to disable, and you're disabling them from a scoring perspective. Okay. So if there's no ink coverage for a certain color in a few ink zones, and it's affecting your score because of course you're only just measuring the color bar, then disabling that color in those ink zones is going to improve the overall score. It also, if you select those and you're sending data from pressSIGN into a third-party closed loop system like PrintFlow or InkZone Loop or Rutherford, disabling those ink zones will that will be followed through into the data that we send to the press console or to the third-party closed loop system. So I think it just says no change, something along those lines. Anyway, here's a quick screenshot to give you an idea of what that looks like. So as you can see, I've disabled ink zone 3 on black, 7 on cyan, 16 on magenta, and 5 and 6 on yellow. Previously, there would be quite a lot of the sheet that was being disabled. Now it's just those colors in those ink zones. However, it will be any related color in that ink zone. So if there's a tint in there, or a grey balance or an overprint, then those patches will simply not be scored as well. So you have to bear that in mind. Okay, so some people make lots of press targets and they want to use the same scoring criteria for all of the press targets that they make, because obviously it's a good idea to score in a consistent way from press target to press target. Some of you will have noticed that we added presets for things like ISO 12647-2, the 2007 revision, -30, 2013 revision, GRACOL, -7 for proof verification. But what you couldn't do is create your own. If you changed anything and then saved it and went back in, it would say custom, because you'd changed something. Now what you can do is you can actually create your own custom preset and give it a name. So you go to the add standard window, either to create a new press target or to edit an existing. You then go to the scoring and tolerances tab and select all of the different scoring criteria that you want. So whether you're scoring overprints or secondaries as they're called now, or whether you want to disable the scoring of spot color tints, or how you want to evaluate grey balance, etc. You choose all of that and put in the number of points that you want and the tolerances that you want to use, and then in the top of the window you'll see the tolerances list. When you've made all your selections, you simply click the add button to then bring up a window to put a name in and save your preset. If you want to export that, then you select your preset from the list, click the right arrow to export a text file, which can then be imported at someone else's pressSIGN installation. So for the brand managers, you can define a scoring tolerance that is unique to yourselves, or for quality managers of large groups of printing factories, you can define a scoring tolerance yourself, and then export them and distribute them via email. However, what I would say is, if you do want to do that and you have a pressSIGN GPM server data center, you can actually create the press target in the data center and activate it for synchronization to remote servers automatically. So kind of negates the whole ability to export that option, because it just gets done automatically, and you then choose which sites you send the data to. So again, it's just an improvement on an existing feature, but just goes to show that we do listen to people when they ask for features. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of the list now, and something that was suggested only recently and was deemed another good idea was the ability to change the softproof view to only show a single color or channel. Now, the softproof view only shows CMYK or a CMYK rendition of your artwork. So the spot colors, sorry, are rendered into CMYK for viewing purposes. That's something that we're looking at for version 10, possibly, is the support of spot colors in the softproof window, but at the moment it's just a CMYK rendition if you've got spot colors in there. But if you want to look at a combination or a single color, single channels, or combination of them, there's a new drop-down window in the top left-hand corner, and you can deselect all of the colors you don't want to look at, or if you press the Alt key and then click on the one you do want to look at, it will get rid of all the other ones. Allows you to do just the same things as you previously did, but just for that channel. Okay, so we're looking at a screenshot of just the cyan channel. Now that's the target data and measured data. Target on the left, adjusted relative to paper with the tick box enabled there, and the measured data on the right, without any adjustment curves or ink key corrections, or variation across ink keys being shown. So it's the same window, it's just showing you cyan. And if you wanted to add magenta, so it's cyan and magenta, or cyan, magenta and yellow, so you were looking at kind of the three color gray components, you can choose any combination of CMYK. Okay, and finally we get on to the topic of Pantone Live. This option is only available to subscribers of pressSIGN GPM. Okay, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. All it is a way of pressSIGN being able to contact the Pantone Live servers to download the available color books from Pantone Live. So for that purpose, you need a Pantone Live production license, and you need one for every single pro license or pro client that you have that's connected to your server. So if you've got a local server and you've got three pro licenses running from that server, you need to buy or have available 3 Pantone Live production licenses. It's administered from the purchase and administration of Pantone Live production licenses are obviously administered by Pantone, but actually it's done through the my.xrite.com portal. You go into the My Pantone Live link when you log in. And from there, I'll go to the screenshot now. From there, you can activate, deactivate your license by clicking the edit button on the right hand side of the license. You get an activation code which you need to use in pressSIGN. You'll see that my license has actually been activated by pressSIGN because there's a Pantone pressSIGN product code specific to pressSIGN. And towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see the library access manager, which I've kind of expanded. That's where you choose which libraries you'll be able to download. Okay, there are something like 36 of them at the moment, as far as I know. So any color books that are ticked in that list, pressSIGN will download if you have enough licenses. Okay, so to configure Pantone Live support, as I say, you need a pressSIGN GPM subscription. You go to the edit window, you choose Pantone Live, which actually brings up the bottom window that just flew in from the left there, but it will be blank. And in order to get the color books to download, you have to click the plus button to the right of the username, which opens then the top left window where you put in your myxrite.com username and password and the activation code that you got from the Pantone Live license, and then choose your measurement condition. What measurement condition you want the data to be in when you download it. So M0, M1, M2, M3, etc. Save that, and then tick the little box to the right hand side, which tells the software to start communicating with the Pantone live server. Now, otherwise it would be doing it all the time, and sometimes you don't want that to happen. If you have enough Pantone live production licenses, you will then start seeing the color books that you've selected in the myxwrite.com window start to download. For those of you with good eyesight, each of those libraries has got 26,500 lines in them, which is obviously quite a lot. So they take a little bit of time to download. Now this is being done at the server level, so you don't have to sit there watching. Okay, it will just happen in the background, so you can click the close button, go and do something else in the software, and as those libraries are downloaded, they won't appear in the list until they're downloaded fully, but when they do, they can be used just like any other Pantone color in pressSIGN or spot color in pressSIGN. However, you won't be able to export the color books, which you can't for the Pantone libraries anyway, but definitely not for Pantone Live. You can't edit them. You can only use them in jobs, sorry, you can use them in any way in the software like any other spot color, but you can definitely not export them because that infringes our license agreement with Pantone. So that comes to the end. That brings us to the end of the new features in pressSIGN 9.2. However, before I answer any questions, because of the pressSIGN Global Print Management GPM kind of context with Pantone Live, we do think it's a good idea to brush or cover the basics of pressSIGN GPM before you go, because we've had a couple more big brand managers like Microsoft and Lint come on board. That has then led to a flurry of questions about pressSIGN GPM, and the simple answer is it is all written in the manual. Anyone that knows me will have probably heard me say that quite a few times, especially when we're at the pressSIGN expert training, which we'll be holding again towards the end of next month. So if you want more in-depth training about various features of pressSIGN, the 2-day expert training course is a good idea. But to go through Pantone pressSIGN GPM, a little bit more detail, I'll just run this slightly older webinar. As you can see, it's still branded with version 6, but GPM hasn't changed massively since that. It's been improved quite a lot. We've added a few other things, but essentially it's the same thing, which is to say that pressSIGN GPM has to be a subscription because we're taking 2 SQL servers and making them talk to each other. And in order to do that, you need them to be in the same state, same tables, same columns, etc., etc. And the simplest way of doing that was to have everyone on a subscription, so everyone is allowed to use the latest version at that time. Now, a lot of people ask if there's any difference in setting up a pressSIGN GPM server compared to other servers. The answer is no. Okay, it is from a printing factory's point of view. You're installing a local server on a computer, and that computer can be physical hardware. It could be a workstation, it could be a laptop, it could be a Mac, or it could be, some humongous blade server with virtual machines and everything. Okay, doesn't matter, as long as you can install the software, the server software, configure it, and use the clients locally. It's the same installation. Okay. The difference really is at the data center end, the server that's going to be synchronizing jobs from the local clients. Again, you still install it the same way, okay, but there's a slightly different configuration. Some people think that actually having a cloud server and then having lots of clients all connecting across the internet is a good way of doing things. We disagree, mainly because every time someone does something in the client, they will be waiting for that signal to go to the server across the internet, depending on how good your broadband is, how busy the internet is at that time, how busy the server is at the other end, because it will be doing a lot more than just a local server. And then it has to come back again. So there can be a bit of a lag. And I won't name names, but one customer did this in America and had probably 40 or 50 clients connecting from all over America. We recommended a local server per site for a long time, and when we did actually get the chance to change that configuration, to test it, the first response from the guy on the end of the press was, wow, that's much faster. And that's really the person that needs the speed, because printers don't really want to be waiting for 5 seconds while something happens. It's perceived as being broken if you have to wait that long. So from that point of view, we recommend a local server in each printing factory. Okay, and if you want or need to synchronize data to another server, whether it's a data center that's operated by your parent company, because they want to be able to color manage from a group perspective and check the consistency and accuracy of all the different printing sites within the umbrella, or whether it's a brand manager or print buyer. Doesn't matter, it's the same configuration, which is the local server. You enter a few details about where the data should go, and how to actually enable that. There's a username and password. It can even be SSL encrypted if you want, although that takes a little bit more manual configuration by us. But essentially, that's pressSIGN GPM, is the sharing of the job data from the local server to a data center server. Now, as I said, this was a fairly old webinar, but essentially that gives us the advantage of being able to do trend analysis from the top, comparing different sites, different press manufacturers, different substrate options, pretty much anything you want using the trend analysis features. Now, in addition to the jobs going up, we can actually create settings centrally on the data center. So press targets, templates, client names, color bars, and spot color libraries. All of those can be created on the central data center, and then activating the synchronize to remote server option, they can be automatically copied, synchronized down to the local servers that you want them to go to, or the administrator of the data center wants them to go to. And the reason that we've added all those, this is kind of the new stuff that we added in the last few years. The reason for that is quite simple. We had a scenario where a quite senior person at a brand got a PDF from someone who had synchronized data to a print buyer, and I'm not going to say any names, but their client, the actual name of their company was misspelt by the printer at source, and it had gone all the way through and not been corrected. So from a group perspective, from a group management perspective, we decided to be able to say, okay, we'll create the client name with the correct spelling that they approve of, or the press target with the correct naming and the correct scoring that the client has approved, or color bars, or any of those other things like spot colors. We'll do that on the data center, and then we'll allow it to be synchronized to the people that need it to do the jobs for us. Okay, and by doing that, you eliminate the possibility that things have been used incorrectly, or printers have used a press target that has been changed to score better, or other such things. And that's really the crux of kind of what we wanted to kind of just remind you about in terms of pressSIGN GPM, in terms of the way it's configured and installed, and also some of the benefits of the newer features that we've added over the years. So that really is the end this time. As you can see, I'll just scroll through some more screenshots. But if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself now. I will allow you to unmute yourselves, and we'll answer those questions however you want. But I'm going to stop recording as well, so that the questions aren't on there anymore.